A mistrial has been declared in the Michael Slager Trial. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with Dot Scott and Rev. Joe Darby of the Charleston NAACP. Let me show you this particular headline from the Post Court. It says deadlock. If you were to rewrite that headline right now, what would you say?
Justice delayed.
Shameful.
Let me take you back really to the trial because I want to describe to you the following in one word. Andy Savage.
Describe him in one word.
Oh, you can? Or you can just go for it.
Well, I just think he is the best at what he does. Andy Savage.
Yeah, the word to be skillful for me.
Michael Slager.
Murderer.
I'm trying to be kind as to how I just think guilty.
Scarlett Wilson.
I masterful in what she did in this trial.
I give that name in.
How about Judge Newman?
Awesome.
Did an excellent job. Excellent.
Statements. Judy Scott, the mother of Walter Scott, and I was at that press conference yesterday, but she basically said this: it's not over until God says it's over.
She sounds like a black mother. Sounds like a Christian black woman. And I say that because it's something about what African American mothers have gone through, that they are always the pillar there. And I think that all the strength you see in her husband, who we never hear speak,
right,
or even in her sons, it speaks volumes of her.
Wow. She says volumes.
Yeah, she was a remarkable display of faith. She was a remarkable woman.
Let me turn to Scarlett Wilson. She basically says she's ready to go right now as far as the new trial. When you hear that, what do you say?
Amen.
Yes, amen to that. I would hope that she and her team would sit down, look at the argument they presented, figure out how they can tighten that argument up, go ahead and do this again.
I think they should also be a little bit more mindful of the makeup of the jury in terms of race. I think that sends a good message. Now, no doubt I'd be the first one to admit that because I was not optimistic about what the result would be, particularly with the makeup of this past jury pool. I was really pleased to see that we had that many that could see and vote in a way that says, you know, the just thing here is to find him guilty. And that was done with a majority white jury. So while we still have issues of concern in terms of picking the jurors, we have to commend those that were there because given the evidence that were provided.
I commend 11 of them.
Well,
The last guy, I can't figure out if he was honest how he got on the jury. If you say, I'd like to say to you that your son was murdered, but I cannot at all convict this man. If he had that kind of commitment going in, because it sounds like it might have been pre-trial commitment, he shouldn't have been on the jury.
absolutely. In fact, I shared that with Reverend Darby earlier, that if he was not voting for conviction because he felt like it had not been proven or there were additional information he needed, it would make sense. But to say, I can't convict, in good faith, I can't convict this man. Do we complete your sentence for you and say, you can't convict this man because he's a police officer or because he's a white guy and the victim is black? You have to ask him, when you make that statement, I can't convict this guy. Well, if it was another case and the victim and the person who committed the act, if we could flip that, would you be able to do it? Those are the questions we'll never be able to ask and get from him. But I think that when these jurors are being asked, can you make this decision, then he should have said early on, as Reverend Darby said, I'm not going to, if indeed there information is provided that says that proves that he's guilty, I'm not going to be able to vote for that, because that's what he's saying.
And it occurred to me and a lot of other people that the juries basically didn't know the difference between fair and passion.
Well, I'm just saying, but they, somehow, when you see something, you can never interpret a person's feelings.
Right.
You can look at the demeanor and the action and see whether or not he seemed to have been acting in fair. If you watch that video
Right.
over and over again, at what point you felt there was fair? Now we can surmise that there may have been a struggle. That there's no evidence that there were any real struggle. But to have someone in such a cool and relaxed state that I can fire 8 bullets and all 8 of them these bullets are at the back of a man that's running away. I don't know why we even are discussing fair.
Yeah.
This guy obviously has nothing but his hand and his feet. So with him with the gun, what fair? We have to get past allowing officers to use because it's a quote-unquote black man. We don't hear that with any other citizen. I feared for my life. When we've got officers, for whatever reason, I believe because someone is black, I need to fear them, then we'll continue to have these kind of outcomes.
Yeah, the piece of incontrovertible evidence, the thing that keeps nagging at me, is the video. There was no fear in that video. If there was a tussle, the man broke away and the man ran. He pulled his service weapon, fired at him 8 times, with a pause between shot 7 and shot 8. Now, that says that you were aiming that last one just to make sure you got it right. That's what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate, as Dot said, that officers are immediately fearful of black men. I thought of the incident in Washington where the guy went into a pizza shop with
Right.
an assault rifle. And he came out alive. Now, if that had been a brother, he would have been pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have all been feared for their lives.
And that's been written in pretty much when statements are written, because a lot of the officers' action, the statement of occurrence, are written in a professional way, and they have the same thread of explanation through the fear for my life gives them, just give them carte blanche. If you fear for your life, you can do anything if you fear for your life. And that's what I'm saying. I think that's one thing that needs to continue to be challenged. You can't just use that. In other words, they're in the wrong profession.
Let me turn to Mayor Tecklenburg because he said the following after the mistrial. He said, quote, "Justice is often a journey, and the journey to justice in the Michael Slager case is far from over, that is. What's the journey next?"
Justice is a journey. What I'd like to make it a statement.
Sure.
It's a longer journey for black folks.
It's a
And
marathon
and
through the swamp for black
It's
folks.
for black folks. And while I understand, and I appreciate even the statement being made at a time like this, whatever we can say to quell the tide of the disappointment and the unrest that we know that's the undercurrent behind all of this, those words are great, but we have to at some point realize that, and this was a thought I had coming over here, when the powers to be demean those of us, when I say those of us, like folks in the NAACP and other civil rights activists that's trying to get answers and resolution for situations as they happen in our community, and we are often dismissed or criticized for even doing so. Then when we have, and this is unprecedented for us to have this kind of these kinds of issues going on simultaneously, then the very same people you have said in your way of being dismissive, we're not listening to you, not listening to you. Then you're asking us to go to the disgruntled, the younger people, and say, can you just quiet it down? Well, you've discredited us, so now those people are telling us, we're not listening to you. And I don't think the powers to be understand how important it is to show a faith of wanting to get things resolved at times, not just when it benefits the city or the powers to be. That's where I'm having a real conflict right now. Is we've begged, we've pleaded, we've been dismissed, we've been eaten up in the media. Those are what I call reasonable minds.
And I think it should be a wake-up call to people who like to run around talking about how unique Charleston is. Charleston strong, all of that garbage. Charleston is not different from Baltimore. It's not different from Ferguson. It's not different from what happened in New York. It's not different from what happened with Demille Rice in Cleveland. In each of those cases, there was excellent evidence of wrongdoing, and there was no conviction. Charleston is no different from any of those places. And we need to grow up, realize that, and work on our problem so that the journey gets to be a little bit easier for everybody.
And
Yeah, I wonder when he says, and whatever difference we have from those places, as I think we're in the South, even as African Americans, we are more willing to accept, and particularly those that I keep saying the powers to be hold in high esteem. They are more willing to remain quiet. They're more willing to let me just not say anything. And then when I see folks coming out telling us, what a wonderful city this is and how we're all together, even as we look at what's being done economically and those kind of housing, education, how do you tell us that we are strong? In other words, that the messaging does not fit what the message really is. And I think that's where there's a real problem. And these things are happening at a time when there's an opportunity for Charleston, strong as we say we are, to really become strong in what we do. And we move past the lip service and the PR. We do a wonderful PR. And sometimes we as black folks, we are, because we like for it to be the way they say it is. It's not that way, and we really need to hold folks accountable and be bold enough to say to them, the rhetoric is not going to work anymore, because you have convinced even the people we were able to talk to not even trust that we're able to get anything done, because you're not listening to us either.
somebody else who has something to say is Governor Nikki Haley. She put out the following statement, quote, "It is my understanding that there will be, as quickly as possible, a new trial where the Scott family and all of South Carolina will hopefully receive the closure that a verdict brings. Justice is not always immediate, but we must always have faith that it will be served. I certainly do. I urge South Carolinians in Charleston and across the state to continue along the path we have walked these last 2 years, a path of grace, faith, love, and understanding. That is who we are and who I know we will continue to be." So what has that path been like in your mind?
The path has been one of acceptance by the African American community for the most part. And all of what the governor said, it's good. It's good for the state of South Carolina. No doubt it is. But does it make it any better for those who continue to suffer? If we continue the same way and be praised for being that way, does it get better? What do we net from? What do we gain from no riot after 9 parishioners were slaughtered? What do we net from the peacefulness behind the Walter Scott? Right. And then we can go farther back and all the other stuff that there's been peaceful discussion and oftentimes without any favorable result. What do we get for it?
The governor is very good at statements, but in my presiding elder district, in one of the rural areas, right, there is a road straight as can be. You can go from 12 miles on that road without turning, clear as a bell. But off the road, you know there are rattlesnakes in the woods. And at points you pass Confederate flags off the road. There's stuff off the road that would keep you from being safe if you ventured one way or the other, or that you can't ignore if you want to drive along there safely. You can talk about the smooth road, but the road is not smooth in South Carolina. It's not smooth, and she still did not let all of her goodwill translate into public policy. I appreciate all of the justice stuff. That does not put a brick on a school in Allendale County or in Hampton County. I appreciate all the equity stuff. That does not provide one job in Jasper County. So I appreciate the cosmetics of the straight road, but there's some stuff off on the curb that you ought not ignore.
Even the healthcare.
and healthcare.
Let me go across the street to the Dylan Roof trial. As you know, the jury selection has been completed, I believe. Apparently, he's representing himself. The judge says that was an unwise decision on his part. What sticks out to you about that?
Well, let me be the first. First thing, he is flipped back now.
Right.
He's going to allow himself to be represented at least until at that point. Dylan Roof is about allowing Dylan Roof to represent himself would be tantamount of putting a mirror in front of Charleston and the state of South Carolina. That's the very last thing. Before I read the Brian Hicks story,
Right.
I'd already said the last thing they want to have here in Charleston is for Dylan to be there and say, no, I wasn't crazy, I'm competent, I knew exactly what I did, and even to the point of saying, you know what, I have no regrets about that. And that's the kind of message that a lot of folks who support Dylan would act like Dylan if they had the will and the way to do it. We still have that kind of mindset. So Charleston and excuse me, the state of South Carolina, nothing serves them well, serves us well for allowing him to speak.
Go for it.
There's an old saying, what does it go? The person who represents himself has a fool for a client. And that's essentially true. But, you know, that's right. You don't want to expose, a Charleston would not want to expose the depth of racism that's still in South Carolina. And if he were to begin to cross-examine people, it would be painful for the families, and it would be horrifying, I'm sure, if people saw that. He's already indicated that he's guilty, willing to plead guilty, you know, kill it. So, you know, the only thing you would get is the kind of delusion that comes from those who are racially insecure, socially insecure.
Go for
But
it.
no, it would serve him, it would serve Dylan to father spread the message he wanted. He
Yeah.
wanted a vision in the race. It would give him a platform. And I think they're aware of that.
So as we sit here right now, you mentioned that the city has been peaceful as far as, you know, protests thereafter, most of these historic events. If you were to talk to those groups right now, what would you tell them?
Well, the sad thing is we've got to divide even among the activists that are there. The younger folks are thinking that the activists are selling out because they feel like they're sending mixed messages. When they're with them, they're saying one thing, and when they're in front of the media or online, you know, somehow with the powers, what I call our administration, they're saying something else. So that's the scary part, because these young people, they tend to be more reactive,
Right.
emotional about what I'm feeling, I need to do something about it, where the older, more seasoned folks are probably more pensive in what they're doing. So right now, one of the things the NAACP doesn't do, we do not advocate for any incitement or rioting and protesting, unless that's an organized thing that we plan to do. And I am not sure, as I stated earlier, that we have the influence to stop or have people to listen to the NAACP and say, you know, the NAACP don't think we should run. They're pretty much saying, NAACP, they're not listening to you anyway, so we're going to do what we think we need to do. That's the scary thing.
Now, I would tell folks, well, I agree with Dot 100%. Some folks need to sit down and shut up every night. Just because the camera is on doesn't mean that you have to immediately jump in front of it. I had someone ask me once, how do you get on TV so often? I said, they call me. I never go chase down, I've never chased down a camera in my life.
That's right.
I'd be just fine if my face is never on video again. So I think that those who consider themselves to be in positions of leadership need to evaluate the nature of their leadership and the impact that it has. And I think that young and old, you really are talking about a journey when it comes to the battle for civil rights. This did not start with Dylan Roof. This did not start with Michael Slager. And we tend to be reactive when something horrific happens. But the NAACP meets once a month on last Thursdays. There's work to be done all year long. I'm sure there are other organizations and other groups that meet regularly, and the best way to make a difference is to be proactive in changing laws, and changing mindsets. And that means more than just going and burning stuff down and tearing stuff up. That means staying the course over the long term and being effective and not just another noisemaker.
Dot Scott, Reverend Joe Darby, thank you always for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, anytime.